Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is John Van Lunen, and you are listening to Treasures of the Outer Banks, the podcast that celebrates the people and places that make this beach special. This is episode 045, and I sat down with local award-winning DJ John Harper. John has been an Outer Banks DJ since 1985. His career has evolved over the decades, and he currently has a show on the streaming broadcast Radio Free Outer Banks. He also uses his skills and knowledge for weddings and writing in some of the local publications. In this episode, we talk about radio history on the Outer Banks, where the industry is presently, where it's going, and more. If you want to check out his services, you can find him online at johnharperdj.com. And if you want to listen to his show, it's at 11 a.m. on Saturdays at Radio Free Outer Banks on your streaming device. Listen in for the rest of the story. So this is a testimonial from one of John Harper's customers on his website. Her name is Mary. John was amazing! Exclamation point. From start to finish, working with John has been a pleasure. Exclamation point. When it came time for the fine details, I gave them along with the age demographic of my guest, and he killed it! Exclamation point. Everyone has told me what a great time they had. We all know a DJ makes or breaks a party, and John made our reception the party we wanted. Exclamation point. I can't recommend him enough. Exclamation point. Thanks again, John, for a wonderful night. Double exclamation point.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then there was one more, and this is from a petition I found to reinstate John Harper as a daily DJ as the music director on WVOD The Sound. I edited this for brevity. His name is Neil. And it says, John is the voice of the Outer Banks, and his on-air commentary and background on the music he is playing, which is superb, makes his programs unique. We all listen because John is on the air. Please bring him back. And we have him back right here. Thanks for showing up, John.
Wow.
Hey,
I'm blushing over here. I'm glad you don't have a camera on me. Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I was doing some research, and there's a lot of good things people are saying about you, so you should be proud. A lot of testimonials on your website, which you should have. You've been around for a long time. I hope that's not an insult.
Nope.
But you've been doing a great job as a DJ. And as a matter of fact, my friend Daryl Law works at Jeanette's Pier. He's been on the beach for a long time.
Right.
He and I go way back. And he said, make sure you ask John Harper about being a DJ in Richmond, because when Daryl Harper was a kid living in Charlotte, Daryl Law. Sorry, when Daryl Law was a kid in Charlottesville,
right,
he used to listen to you on your Richmond radio stations. How long ago was that?
Well, I started radio in the 70s in Petersburg, Virginia, WSSV. And then I was in Hopewell, Virginia for another couple of years, and then went to New Bern, North Carolina. I was in Raleigh for a short time, then back to Richmond in the late 70s, early 80s, and worked at, let's see here.
That was probably when he was listening to.
Yeah, I was in Charlottesville also.
Oh, okay.
Yep. But I worked at 3WV in Charlottesville, and then in Richmond I worked at XL 102, Easy 104, Light 98, and WGOE.
Nice. And I'm digressing a little bit, but I had an English teacher in high school. She taught me a word, mellifluous, and your voice is mellifluous.
Well, it's an interesting thing. If it's your own voice, you don't think much about it. But, the town manager of Manio, the former town manager, said, if you decide to rob a bank, don't talk. Hand them a note. They'll pick you up in about a minute and a half.
They'll be picking you up down the street. Mm-hmm. That's great. So you come to the Outer Banks around 1985?
85, January 3rd.
Now, this place must have been a ghost town.
It was.
What drove you to come here?
Well, I worked here in 81 and 82 at WOBR AM. It was just a summer job because it was a daylight station. And went back to Richmond and worked in radio up there, got married. And they changed formats on the FM, WOBR FM, Beach 95, we called it. And the general manager asked me if I'd come back as the program director.
So he offered you a little promotion to come back?
He did, yep. So I moved in, like I say, January 3rd, 1985. And
Must
here
have
I
been
am.
crickets in January.
Yes, I remember calling my then wife Patricia and saying, "I'm not sure I'm going to make it." I said, "There's nobody here. It's cold. I'm lonely. All of that." But she came down the following October. So
And just curious, did you move straight to Manio?
nope, lived in Old Nags Head Cove.
Wow. So that must have been real sleepy.
Yeah.
What was the radio scene like back then?
Well, there were really two radio stations then, WOBR AM and FM. The AM signed on in 1970, the FM in 73. And there was a station called OK 106, which is now Dixie 105.7. And they were based in Columbia. That's where their tower is, and they had their studio there. And then so there were really two FM stations here.
Right.
And then 105.7, Surf 106 moved to the Outer Banks. They had brought their operation here, so we had two, and one AM.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Not a huge selection.
No, and then WVOD signed on in 1986. 99.1, it was 99.3. Then it went to 99.1, and then let's see. WNHW signed on in 1990. That was 92.3. And then we had another station, The Wind, 97.1. That signed on in probably 98. And then this guy named Bill Ray put Beach 104 on the air, and I think that was 93.
And were you doing just about everything back then?
At WOBR FM I was. I was the program director, afternoon man, music director, did the news from time to time.
And did you have to slide in and just do anything at any time?
Pretty much. I mean, we did, it was old-time community radio. We covered the elections, we did football, we did basketball.
And how'd you get the news back then? You just pick up a newspaper?
Off a AP teletype.
Is that right?
For the national stuff.
Right.
Local stuff, we had a great news director, Greg Clark. He won a number of awards. And at various times, we had a second news person, Mary Ellen Riddle, Debbie Williams. There were a couple of others. And they'd read the Virginian Pilot, the Coastland Times, make their own phone calls, rely on stringers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you're still writing, you have kind of a side gig with the Virginian Pilot, writing entertainment assignments and stuff like that?
Mostly entertainment. I started with the Virginian Pilot and the Coast in 1994. And I've written probably 2,000 stories, I guess.
Really?
Mostly about music, but I've covered, all about entertainment. But also I've written features about nightclubs and Elizabethan gardens and Jockey's Ridge history.
Right.
I mean, number of subjects.
Right. I caught one this morning. You wrote about the old casino.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's still, that whole thing still fascinates me. Mm-hmm. And one of my first podcast recordings with Wakey Wise, he was a kid. He kind of worked or helped out in there and described the whole thing. He even described he was there when Chubby Checker? No, Fats Domino.
Right.
Fats Domino was performing.
Right.
And he said African Americans weren't allowed in the casino, so they all lined up outside to listen to Fats Domino. How crazy is that?
Wow. I hadn't heard that. Wow.
Yeah. That was his recollection. He said he was there.
Okay.
But anyway, that was pretty fascinating. Do you have any experiences with the casino, or you kind of came in after that?
I came toward the end of their life.
Right.
So no, but I've written about the Casino Mexicano, Kelly's, the Atlantis,
right.
Soundside Folk and Ale House in Kill Devil Hills. So I've written about a lot of the defunct nightclubs.
Right.
People feel a real attachment to those things.
Right. There are a lot of memories attached to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess you can kind of describe your time presence too by where you used to hang out.
Right.
Have you has writing for the Virginia Pilot given you any opportunities to meet any of these musicians, or?
I've talked to a number of prominent musicians on the phone. And in my travels over the years, I've met a lot of rock stars, especially when I was in Richmond working at a couple of stations. I met Crosby, Stills and Nash in Chicago, and Kenny Loggins.
And when you're traveling, are you traveling just to see these people?
Occasionally, or seeing him in concert,
Yeah.
and then get backstage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I go to Nashville every year
Yeah.
for a songwriters festival. I've been doing that for about 25 years, so I've met a lot of major musicians there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you going as a press media or?
I did the first couple of years. Back in 96 and 97, I wrote stories for the Virginian Pilot. But after that, I said, I don't want to be working. I just want to be a music fan.
Right.
So
you just mingle and chat.
I just mingle.
Nice.
Yep.
Jumping around a little bit, you post a handwritten playlist, I guess, every day before you go on the air? Is this?
Well, that's I'm on Radio Free Outer Banks.
That's just for Radio Free Outer Banks thing?
I know you had Greg Smerdell in, who started the station back in 2020, and I'm very honored that he asked me to be part of it, because I had just been furloughed at another station. We'll talk about that. But Greg and I worked together at WOBR FM back in the 80s.
Right.
When,
and just to catch the listener up, we just had Greg Smerdell on in the previous episode, and he's talking about his streaming radio station called
Radio Free Outer
Banks. I always stumble across that.
Right.
Yep. So you can still listen to John Harper on the streaming station on your computer or Spotify at Radio Free Outer Banks. And you have a show. What's the name of the show?
Flashback at 11. It's every Saturday morning. I pick a year and play usually about a dozen songs from that year. Try to mix it up, make it a representative of the year in music.
Right.
Some alternative rock, pop, rhythm and blues. So that's on every Saturday at 11. So after I do the show, I post my playlist.
Right.
Yeah.
And you pre-record that, then they post it online.
I do. Yep.
Nice. And so now you're really busy with your DJ. I guess it's kind of opened up your DJ operation even more so?
Yeah. I mean, as we were
a bit
before we went on the air here, I think I told you I've done about probably 1,400 weddings in my career, maybe 1,200 down here. I did weddings in Richmond. So I don't do as many as I once did. I used to do 60 to 70 a year. Now I try to get 15 to 20. And by doing that, I can be more selective, make sure I'm the right person for the job. That's why I probably got, I work hard at this. I've made it a craft. I'm conscientious, all of those. But, if it's a good match between the bride and groom and me, then it's more likely to be a successful event, which is what has happened. Right.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of positive feedback, so it sounds like it's gone really well for you.
JohnHarperDJ.com is my website.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'm not to be boastful, but I've won the Wedding Wire Couples Choice Awards 17 years in a row. That's a national thing. I've also won the Knots, which is a national website and magazine. I've won their, whatever they call their award, several times. And OBX Today runs a Best of the Beach contest every year. I've won that 5 years in a row.
Nice. So that kind of pops a question in my head, and that is, you've probably seen the wedding industry just explode here in the last 30 years.
Indeed. When we started the Wedding Association back in the, early 90s, I think we had 26 members. And we had a wedding show at the Comfort Inn South upstairs. We had about 50 people come through there, but they were all locals.
Right.
And then in about sometime maybe mid-90s, out-of-towners discovered the Outer Banks was a great place to get married.
Right.
So the Outer Banks Wedding Association started marketing, in other places, and we were probably in the top 2 or 3 wedding destinations there for several years.
Wow. Yeah, it's huge. I even went to the expo I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago, just out of curiosity, really.
Right.
You know, I was trying to look for maybe my next business, but yeah, it was just loaded with people. The gym is loaded with vendors,
Right,
and the cafeteria is loaded with vendors, and there's vendors all over the hallways.
Yep.
And it's quite, the expo's quite an impressive event for the Outer Banks.
It is.
And a lot of not kids, but a lot of people come down and check it out from out of town. So good for all of you people that have been able to take advantage of that. And it is a great place to get married. There's a lot of great resources here.
Right.
Records. Do you still own any records?
Albums?
Yeah.
A few. I don't have a turntable anymore. So,
Right.
but I have probably 2,000 CDs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you, just out of curiosity, what do you take into weddings? Is it on a thumb drive on a computer, or?
It's I have two laptops. Well, I use one. One's a backup, and I have a program called OTS, which is a DJ program developed in Australia. So you can build playlist. It has a search bar. You can put an artist in there, a song in there, and then then the one song will segue into another song. So it's a smooth transition.
Nice.
I sometimes do it manually, but it'll do it by itself.
Nice.
So,
Okay. Do musicians ever come to the Outer Banks to visit? I mean, have you seen a lot of people come down here, or are we just talking about musicians that are showing up to perform in small venues?
you mean musicians just visiting the Outer Banks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure we always know they're here.
Right.
But, probably the most famous was Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters, used to have a house in Kerala.
I think somebody told me that, yeah.
And he used to hang out at Mexicano in Kill Hills.
Is that right?
And various people have been here over the years. Jimmy Buffett was here.
Yeah, I do recall seeing that,
Yeah. But I think the rumor was Taylor Swift, before she even got this big, used to vacation here.
Is that right? That's fun.
Bruce Springsteen's been here.
I actually met him when he came down here.
Yeah.
He
At a
rented
wedding?
some jet skis. He rented some
okay.
jet skis for me.
Okay. He was here for a wedding.
Yeah, and you know what? I was talking to a neighbor, and we were kind of triangulating things, and she said, yeah, that was probably the time he was here for my friend's wedding. So,
Right. It was at Swan Cove in Duck.
is that right?
Which is now what? It's another venue now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But actually, he was a customer at Duck at the Sunset Grill, which back then was the
Right.
Desert Island Inn.
Right.
I was just renting jet skis down there. And
Oh,
he came
yeah,
down and
yeah.
grabbed a bunch of jet skis. Yeah, very awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you've been evolving yourself on the Outer Banks. I mean,
Well, most people down here have to kind of piecemeal.
that was kind of what I was leading up to. We all kind of, but you seem to have kept your same little side hustle, so to speak. I mean, or I should say, skill set. You've used the same skill set, just different avenues and different ways. Has that been difficult or easy? I mean,
Well, it's, I don't know if you're familiar with a book called Outliers. It's Malcolm Gladwell wrote it. And what he talks about in the book is like the Beatles. People think they just
10,000 hours.
Yeah, right. They just sort of happened when they had put in 10,000 hours or more in those seedy nightclubs in London, Liverpool, Hamburg, Germany. So I felt like when the wedding industry, the wedding business happened here or exploded here, I was ready.
Right.
So it was, weddings are...
And did you see that coming a mile away?
No.
Or was it like, hey, wait, I got to get on this train before it leaves?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I was doing maybe 10 weddings a year back in the mid-'80s, but they were all locals. So I had some word of mouth, and I was on radio, commercial radio back then. So
that was an easy sell.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the radio thing that's going on right now. Unfortunately, I've seen you and a couple other local DJs, lose their jobs. And I know that some of it's, management makes decisions. Is radio dying? I mean, are we just all falling back onto Spotify and streaming and stuff like that?
Well, there's certainly more competition these days, I'll say
Right.
that. But the commercial stations that are successful, East Carolina Radio, which owns, I don't even know how many stations, 7, 9 down here, They've managed to be successful by staying local. I mean, Rick Lesh, who has been in business for over 3 decades, he keeps them local. They're all employees that live here. There's been at least 3 radio groups here that have come from, other places, bought local stations, and not having a clue about the Outer Banks and not willing to listen to the folks that may know something about the market. So that's made it, one of the companies I work for down here, Jam Media, is now in Chapter 7 bankruptcy. It was a perfect example. They came in, ignored the advice of folks that have worked in the market for 3 decades or more, and, just decided they knew everything. And now there they are.
Up for auction.
Up for auction. Yep.
Could be yours. Careful what you wish for.
Well, I mean, people have asked me about that. Would I want to own a radio station or get a group together to, buy a radio station? I don't know.
Do you miss real radio?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every day. It's what I wanted to do since I was 12. My uncle was a radio DJ. My grandfather did some on-air stuff. And when I was a teenager, we built a little radio station in my parents' little tool shed.
Yeah.
And we would broadcast every night for a couple of hours. We had a little transmitter. We could broadcast for about 4 blocks.
That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm. The FCC probably has a file on me somewhere.
Up in the post office.
Yeah,
funny.
There he is.
There was a movie just like that, but it was TV. It was Wayne's World, wasn't it?
Right. Well, we were pirate radio before there was such a thing.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I guess, whenever I try to record an episode without a guest, I never feel like I have any energy, and it's just me talking out loud. And I guess it's probably similar to you doing your own radio show that's not live, and you're recording it for the streaming station. There's never that two-way.
Right. I mean, it's the beauty of radio, commercial radio, in its prime was immediacy. You had a DJ in a booth talking, live, and he had his own. He could pick up on the vibes of the music, and you could sort of sense that, he or she, and that's gone. There's a lot of what they call voice tracking. People are not even in the studio,
right?
And I think that's hurt radio. Commercial radio.
Yeah.
So, I miss that day to day. I love curating playlist. It's
right.
one of my...
Did you ever have to take orders from corporate about what to play? Or management?
I have. Not here. I had a general manager at WOBR, 95.3, a guy named Pat Cahill, and he had confidence in me, so he rarely said anything. And Mike Smith, who was the general manager of the 4 stations here that were owned by Max Media, for a while he kept his eye on me, or ear on me, I guess.
Yeah.
But then he said, I trust you.
Right. Isn't that for the larger corporate radio stations?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that pretty normal? It's like, this is the list and you're playing it.
Oh, yeah. Like all the iHeart stations, probably 1,000, have the same playlist, market to market to market.
Is that right?
And I think that's unfortunate. You were asking me about radio dying. I don't think that's helped. Right. Again, as we talked about, being tapped into the community. I've talked to thousands of people about music over the last 39 years. As a radio guy, as a wedding DJ, as a music writer for the Virginia Pilot, or just generally, day to day, people talk to me about music. So when this company bought the commercial stations here, they had a consultant from Iowa who had been on the Outer Banks for 3 days, and somehow he knew more than I did.
Right.
And I said, how is that possible? You are a quick learner. You know, you're going to look a lot smarter if you listen to the other folks in the building that have been here. And, you know, but anyway, there we are.
And here we
Chapter 7, yeah.
All the way to Chapter 7. If somebody said they wanted to get into radio, what kind of advice would you give them?
Don't expect to make a lot of money, and don't expect any security.
Wow.
Or, and probably no retirement or pension.
Really?
No.
They give you no benefits.
Well, while you're working there, you might get, health insurance, and vacation, but there's no, I've never worked at a station that had a pension plan.
Right.
And I've worked at a dozen stations, I guess.
Wow. I guess, is that because they just feel most of you are replaceable?
For the most part.
Right.
And it's, it's a subjective business. So, you could be...
Day to day.
Well, you could be popular, and then a new program director comes in. He doesn't like the way you sound.
Right.
You're out of there.
Right.
That happens all the time. Or a consultant,
Right. Any stories you want to share? Anything interesting?
Well, again, I feel fortunate that I've been able to make a living on radio and doing weddings and writing for a newspaper. No, I wouldn't change anything. I think it's what I was meant to do.
Sure.
So whenever you have that chance, you should be thankful.
Right. Well, you got the voice for it. The website is johnharperdj.com.
.com, right.
And you can go there and get some more information, or maybe give them a shout out to get a bid for a wedding or anything like that. Any special events? Do you do anything else beside the weddings?
Oh yeah. I've done, I've done class reunions, New Year's Eve parties, Christmas parties, birthday parties, family reunions, charity events.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. Any projects coming up you want to talk about?
Let's see. I'm writing a couple of stories for Outer Banks magazine.
Okay.
I had 3 in the last edition. One about the Atlantis nightclub that we talked about, and one about the downtown Manio music scene. Man, yeah. The Pioneer Theater is rocking.
Yeah.
Have you been in?
I have not been inside it, but it looks great from all the social media posts that they put up, and it seems like they got something going on every week.
Yeah, I really am proud of Michael Bassnight, who's running the thing. He's brought in comedy and music and movies and put football games on the big screen.
Nice. Do you visit there often?
I do. Nice. I live about a couple of 100 feet from there.
Is it just your nature to go see live music every chance you get, pretty much?
Not as much as I once did, but yeah, I still go to a fair number of concerts. I saw Graham Nash in Charlottesville back in November.
Nice.
But I've probably been to, 500, no, probably more than that. I was going to say 500 concerts, but it's probably more than that.
Right.
But I've seen most of the biggies.
Nice.
Stones, McCartney.
My sister just shared with me that Jim Croce's son,
AJ,
is doing a concert in Raleigh-ish, like at the end of the month. Unfortunately, it's on a Wednesday night, and I just can't sneak out of here on a weekday. But that would be really cool.
He played here.
Did he really?
He did. For the Outer Banks Forum.
Mm-hmm. How long ago was that?
10 years, 15 years.
Was it really good?
I was in Nashville, unfortunately. But it was at First Flight High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you have a favorite venue on the beach?
Like I say, the Pioneer Theater I like a lot, and Festival Park.
Yeah, very cool outdoor venue. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a perfect setting. You're on an island.
Yeah. Surrounded by the trees.
And the
water. Very cool. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nice. John, thanks for taking the time to sit down with me. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, John.
Mel Torme was called the Velvet Fog because of his smooth, mellow voice. Since Torme is no longer with us, I recommend we recycle that nickname for John Harper. Somebody please get a petition started. Big thanks to John Harper for sitting down with me. It was an honor to get to know him. Another reminder, if you want to check out his services, you can find him online at johnharperdj.com. And if you want to listen to his flashback show, it's at 11 a.m. on Saturdays at Radio Free Outer Banks, wherever you listen to streaming music. Don't forget, be sure to check out my website, treasuresoftheouterbanks.com, and sign up for the weekly email so we can stay in touch. I promise I won't be annoying. Also, while you're on the website, be sure to check out the merchandise page because I have some new t-shirt designs I think are pretty cool. Just click on an image and drill down to the full catalog. I particularly like the Vandelay Industries design I just came up with. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, and until that time, make it a good one.